call it the year, really. That's what a lot of these fighters do. They have a big fight in a year and then they go ghost for the rest of the year. And this is why what Alex is doing this year is so impressive. He's already the champion. People already love him. Alex is probably the most loved fighter in the UFC right now, and he just keeps going. Every challenge Dana presents to him, he's like, yeah, I'll fight this guy. Sports is the bread and butter of this channel. I love talking about great athletes and how different athletes are doing amazing things in sports. Today we're going to talk about Alex Perieira and the amazing year he's had in the UFC. I feel like he single-handedly made this year, he's single-handedly saved this UFC year because it's been quite boring, but Alex has really made it interesting. So without wasting any more time, guys, let's get straight into it.
Fighters aren't fighting enough. It's the thing that's hurting hype for fighters and the sport in general. And I was thinking about, like, why do fans feel like the sport is dry right now? It's not as exciting as it used to be. I think the activity of the fighters, how much they're fighting, the frequency of competition is just not the same. With a few exceptions, Alex Pereira is a great example for champions to stay active, defend their titles, get like 3 title fights a year. You have other fighters like Kevin Holland, Diego Lopez, who are also...
And that's crazy. Let me say this right now. That's crazy. The fact that Alex Pereira has had 3 title fights is crazy. And not only that, but every single fight he goes there and he dominates. Alex is showing what a champion should be in the UFC. If you're the champion, you should be dominating your competition. And that is exactly what Alex is doing. And he's doing it in his own terms. He's not letting anyone take him away from his game. He's a striker. He goes in there to strike people, and he's making a fool out of a lot of these guys. He's making a fool out of a lot of these guys. When we're talking about sports greatness, Alex Pereira right now is one of the greatest athletes in the world. If he's probably had the most dominant year, the most dominant year of any athlete this year. One of the most dominant, if not the most.
fighting very often, but that's just not the majority of the fighters. 99% of the fighters compete like 2 to 3 times a year, and that's not just champions. That's even
if that. So you're saying 2 to 3 times, if that. Some fighters they've not fought in years. If that.
prospects. That's even rising contenders. Fighters that are not even ranked in the top 15 are fighting as frequently as champions are, when usually it's the champions that fight less. The higher up the totem pole a fighter goes, from non-ranked to top 15, top 10, top 5, top 3, number 1 contender, then champion, throughout that ladder, the less they usually compete. Because it's kind of tied with fighter pay. The more money a fighter gets, the less they usually compete. This is shown in boxing, this is shown in multiple combat sports, and has also been shown in MMA. The highest level, I guess,
and it only makes sense. When you're fighting, you're taking so much damage. There's just so much effort when it comes to training camps and being consistent, where when you get to the top, there's no the incentive is not as strong in a sense, because what you had to do in 5, maybe 10 fights, you can do that in one fight and call it the year, really. That's what a lot of these fighters do. They have a big fight in a year and then they go ghost for the rest of the year. And this is why what Alex is doing this year is so impressive. He's already the champion. People already love him. Alex is probably the most loved fighter in the UFC right now, and he just keeps going. Every challenge Dana presents to him, he's like, yeah, I'll fight this guy. And he's making the UFC so much more interesting.
like superstar. Conor McGregor used to fight 3 times a year. Then after the Floyd Mayweather boxing match, he was fighting like once a year, once every 2 years, because he made so much more money than ever before. You saw with George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre used to fight 3 times a year, and then when he became champion, it was like once a year, 2 times a year sometimes. I mean, look at the champions right now. John Jones has fought once in like 4 years or whatever it is. If you look at,
I love John Jones, but his inactivity is bad, because you have people actively calling him out. You know, you can say these people are just trying to get paid, even if they lose. They're just looking for the money. But nonetheless, you've got people calling him out. You see, most UFC fans will easily tell you that John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. 1 fight in 4 years is disgusting. Imagine if Ronaldo only played whenever he wanted to. Imagine if Messi only played whenever he wanted to. Imagine if Kobe only played whenever he wanted to. John Jones, he's done a lot for the sport, but 1 fight in 4 years is not it. It's not good for the sport at all.
Every single champion besides John Jones and Alex Pereira, who are the complete opposites, right? John Jones fought once in 4 years. Alex Pereira fought 3 times in less than half a year. Alex Pereira is what the
And this is what we need to be applauding. This is what we need to be applauding. 3 fights in 5 months, and he's making it look easy. He's making it look easy. Not in the sense like every fight he goes into, there's definitely struggle, but the way he composes himself, the fact that he can just have 3 in 5 months, this is what a champion should be like. And this is why UFC fans pause. Let me pre-pause it. This is why UFC fans are all over Alex. Again, pause. But they just, it's hard for a sports fan to see someone who is at the top of their game and working as hard as they can. That's the key part. You're at the top of your game and you're working as hard as you can. You're going to create fans. And then Alex is, I know it's not really part of the fighting side of things, but Alex's social media presence, he's just so entertaining. He's entertaining inside and out of the octagon. So it makes sense that people gravitate towards him so much.
fans want. John Jones is the opposite of what fans want. Every single champion besides them two fights on average twice a year. And that's not only as their champions. From when they made their UFC debut, they've averaged 2 fights a year. All of the current champions right now, from Tom Aspinall to Dricus du Plessis, Bilal Muhammad, Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria, Merab Dvalishvili, Alexander Pantoja, Valentina Shevchenko, Zhang Weili, they all fight on average twice a year, ever since they all made their UFC debuts. Alex Pereira is absolutely blowing them out of the water by just fighting more, and they don't even fight when they're non-ranked. They have the same level of frequency throughout their entire UFC careers. From when they debuted to winning the championship to defending their titles, they fight twice a year. And I was questioning what's stopping these newer fighters like Bo Nickel, like Peyton Talbot. These fighters are not yet ranked, they're not yet established veterans or something like that. What's stopping them from competing more often? Because they're fighting just the same amount as high-ranked fighters are and champions are, when that doesn't make sense. Newer fighters should be competing more than ever, right? They should be getting like 4 to 5 fights a year, maybe even more. I don't know why 5 fights is like the threshold. Boxers in the beginning of their careers are fighting 8 to 10 times a year sometimes. Muay Thai fighters are fighting way more often. But you got Bo Nickel and Peyton Talbot fighting like...
This is where I kind of disagree. I still feel like if you're... Because it's a fighting sport, I feel like there should be a cap on how many times you can fight in a year. Just because of the... Fair enough, if a guy is ready, let him fight. But at the same time, there's just so much damage to your body. There's so much damage to your body that I feel like there should be a cap on how much fighters should be fighting. But nonetheless, even with that cap, these guys are not even doing half of what they should be doing right now.
A couple times a year. And that's what exploded Hamza Chimaev. Hamza Chimaev's stardom began when he fought twice in a single week. He destroyed 2 opponents in a single week. That's what made him so popular, right? That's what made him so famous, and all the fans loved him for that, because he was not only putting on great performances and going for the finish, and he grappled in a way where it was exciting to watch, but he was so active as a fighter. He wanted to fight Damian Maia immediately after he beat Li Jingliang. But then all the steam kind of died out when he started fighting like once or twice a year. He was getting sick and all that stuff, so it's not him wanting to fight so less frequently, but altogether that's what the fans see from Hamza. It's a guy that just doesn't fight. When that's all the fans want at the end of the day. They want to see fighters fight and consistently put on performances. The first fighter that gets over 5 fights a year is going to become a star. And what about Deiveson Figueiredo? He defended his belt, defended his flyweight title twice in like 3 weeks. He submitted Alex Perez in the first round, then went to a draw with Brandon Moreno in a fight that a lot of people thought that he should have won. Bro fought at UFC 255 and UFC 256. He fought in 2 pay-per-view cards back to back. In February and July of that year, he fought Joseph Benavidez twice. 4 title fights in a single year from Deiveson Figueiredo. How is a champion fighting 4 times a year? Then you got these non-ranked guys fighting 2 to 3 times a year? How? That doesn't make sense. And these are also some of the same fighters that complain about fighter pay. It'd be awesome to see every single...
At the same time, I'll give these guys some slack, because there's a lot... If we're talking about like unranked guys, there's going to be a lot of competition. So there's too many people fighting for the... How can I put this? There's too many fighters, and Dana has a cap on how many fights he can have in one night. He can't just put everyone that wants to fight on a card. But still, even to that extent, a lot of these fighters are not fighting enough. I'm not really focusing on the guys that are unranked and etc. I'm mainly talking about the champions, where the inactivity is bad for the sport. But then you have Alex Pereira, and you're seeing how active he is and how positive that is for the sport and his own brand. So that's been my main takeaway from the video. So yeah, thank you very much for watching to the end, guys. You're much appreciated. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, share, do all these things to please help me grow this channel. And as per usual, I'll see you guys soon.